Genius, visionary, savior, madman, bully, cold-blooded tyrant. No matter how you view Elon Musk, you can't deny that he's the most important and controversial figure of our era. He transformed an almost bankrupt electric vehicle company into the world's most valuable car manufacturer. He used the power of a private company to send humanity's steps towards the stars. He even wants to implant chips into our brains and connect humans with AI. He seems to be omnipotent, always challenging the limits of humanity. But at the same time, the negative news about him has never stopped. He fires employees coldly, mocks opponents mercilessly, and stirs up one storm after another on social media. He's sometimes like an innocent child, and sometimes like a cold-blooded demon. Where does this extreme contradiction come from? What kind of experiences shaped such a complex and elusive soul? Today, we'll go back to where it all began, back to South Africa in the 1970s and 1980s. On that land, full of sunshine and violence, we'll look for that lonely boy named Elon and uncover the 3 shackles of his childhood. Because only by understanding his childhood traumas can you truly understand how the so-called demon mode switch was installed deep in his soul. In 1971, Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa. His mother, May, was an elegant model and nutritionist. His father, Errol, was a talented but eccentric engineer. Genetically speaking, Musk was undoubtedly lucky as he inherited the best from both parents. But as a child, he was a far cry from the word genius. In the eyes of his family and teachers, he was a strange kid. He often fell into a trance, staring blankly ahead and ignoring calls from the outside world. His mother once worried he had a hearing problem and took him to see countless doctors. She even had his adenoids removed, but it didn't work. Many years later, people realized it wasn't a hearing issue, but an extreme form of concentration. When he became interested in a problem, his brain was like a high-speed computer, blocking out all external signals and entering a world of only logic and data. He wasn't daydreaming, he was having a mental storm. This inborn concentration made him a walking encyclopedia. While his peers were running around and playing, young Elon was already immersed in the ocean of books. He read for over 10 hours a day, from the Encyclopedia Britannica to Isaac Asimov's science fiction novels. Books were his only refuge from his lonely childhood. At 12, using self-taught programming knowledge, he developed a space game called Blastar and successfully sold it to a computer magazine for $500. This was undoubtedly the first glimmer of his genius. A nerd immersed in his own world, passionate about science and fantasy. This should have been a great start for a genius teenager. However, reality had a very different script for him. Because in his life, there was a huge and persistent shadow. And this shadow came from his closest person, his father, Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a complex and contradictory figure. He combines the rigorous thinking of an engineer with the fearless spirit of an adventurer. He'd take his kids deep into the desert to search for lost ruins and fly planes, performing high-difficulty stunts. In Elon Musk's childhood memories, his father surely shone with a charming, heroic aura at certain moments. However, there were shadows beneath that aura. Errol had wild mood swings and showed a strong tendency for mental control. He was well known for using verbal and mental pressure to systematically undermine his children's self-confidence and sense of worth. According to records, Errol's way of education was almost coldly rational. He'd scold Elon for hours on end. The core wasn't to point out specific mistakes, but to completely deny him as a person. Assertions like, "You're good for nothing," and "You'll never amount to anything," created this mental high-pressure situation day after day, year after year. What's even more disturbing is that Errol had a powerful storytelling ability to reshape reality to suit his needs. The book mentions a notable example. 3 armed men once broke into their home, and Errol managed to subdue them with a gun. Afterward, when telling the kids about it, he showed no sign of fear or trauma. Instead, he was full of heroic pride. He painted a serious, violent conflict as a calm and decisive act of self-defense. This reshaping of reality plunged young Elon Musk into deep confusion and pain. He had a hard time telling truth from fiction and felt more acutely that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't seem to win his father's real approval. After his parents divorced, Musk made a decision he'd deeply regret later. He chose to move in with his father. His motive was simple and kind. Mom has 3 kids, and Dad is all alone. He seems so lonely. He tried to warm that seemingly lonely man with his company, but got even more severe mental pressure in return. He described that experience as a practical lesson in experiencing the dark side of human nature. Father Errol, like a strict engineer, instilled a deep sense of vigilance and unease in Musk. He made Musk believe in the harsh rule of the world. One must be indestructible to survive. But this experience also built an emotional wall, making Musk feel distant from emotional connections and empathy. In an environment that only valued logic and the will to survive, emotions were seen as a luxury, even a burden. If the mental abuse from his father was the first shackle, then the physical violence from his peers was the second one around his neck. In South Africa, in the 1980s, the white society admired an extremely rough form of masculinity. School was like a real life lord of the flies world, where the law of the jungle was the only rule. And Musk was right at the bottom of the food chain. He was small in stature, not good at talking, and always buried in books. In the eyes of those classmates who believed muscle is truth, he was the perfect target for bullying. They gave him all sorts of insulting nicknames and chased him around to beat him every day. The violence reached its peak one day. A group of bullies cornered him at the stairwell. A leader kicked him down the concrete steps and then jumped down to kick him hard in the head. The others swarmed in, and punched and kicked him until he passed out. When he woke up in the hospital, he saw his father, Errol. Instead of getting a single word of comfort, he was severely scolded. His father sided with the boy who'd beaten him half to death, calling him stupid and saying he deserved it. His brother, Kimball, just coldly told him, "You need to learn to fight back." At that moment, Musk's world completely collapsed. Home wasn't his haven, and school was his hell. There was no one to rely on, and no place that was safe. He was like a young beast thrown into an arena, either learn to fight or be torn to pieces. This incident left a permanent scar on his face and an unhealable mark on his heart. He realized that pain was inescapable, and giving in and being tolerant wouldn't bring sympathy but only more intense attacks. From that day on, a switch in his heart was completely flipped. He started to fight back. He learned karate, judo, and wrestling, and forced himself to get strong. When another school bully provoked him, he knocked the bully down with a single punch and then stared at him coldly. He didn't feel the pleasure of revenge, just a cold calm. He wasn't enjoying the violence, but following a survival necessary procedure. He later recalled, "They taught me to never back down." This was the third shackle of Musk's childhood, a cruel environment that taught him to solve problems with violence. A mentally abusive father, a violence-glorifying school, and a lonely and helpless childhood. These three shackles were like a cruel furnace that forged the once sensitive and fantasy-loving boy into a steel-like warrior. It was also in this furnace that the demon mode that would later drive him to conquer the world was fully activated. What is the demon mode? It's a combat state in extreme pressure where one can shut off all emotions, empathy, and hesitation for survival and victory. When the rocket explodes on the launch pad, when Tesla's production line goes to hell, and when everyone thinks he'll fail, he switches to this mode. In this mode, he's cold, heartless, and has a single go. He can fire those who can't keep up with him without hesitation, because he remembers the father who told him, "You're good for nothing." He can push himself and his employees to the limit, sleeping on the factory floor because he remembers that afternoon when he was beaten at the stairs and no one reached out to help. His childhood taught him that pain is normal, survival is the top priority, and victory is the only way to wash away all the humiliation. So, when we see the Elon Musk today, who charges through the business world, ignores the rules, and even seems a bit heartless, we might see that deep in his heart, there still lives that lonely boy from South Africa. All his adventures and conquests might just be a long and grand revenge to prove to the world that once hurt him and to the painful childhood that I'm not a useless person. I can win. His childhood shaped him and also imprisoned him. What didn't kill him ultimately made him stronger and colder. And when this man, with his childhood demons, holding the wealth and power to change the world, came to Silicon Valley, what kind of storm would he stir up? He realized that changing his environment was a necessary choice. His goal was crystal clear: the United States, a place widely described in books and the media as full of opportunities. For a young man passionate about technology and believing it could drive the future, the US, especially Silicon Valley, represented the ideal direction. It was at the forefront of technological innovation, with endless startup stories. He believed that in such an environment, his ideas and abilities would have better room to grow. However, the journey from South Africa to the US was fraught with challenges. Lacking direct access and resources, he relied on his unwavering determination to start a multi-year planning and action process. Now, let's talk about how Elon Musk set off from South Africa and finally set foot on North American soil to pursue his dreams. It was not only a geographical leap, but also a process where a young man used his wisdom and initiative to plan his future. The first step of leaving South Africa showed Musk's talent for planning his path. Knowing it was difficult to go directly to the US, he found an alternative: Canada. He applied for Canadian citizenship through his Mother May's birthplace qualification. This process was no walk in the park. His father, Errol, didn't approve of the kids leaving and put up obstacles. But Musk kept pushing forward, patiently handling all the paperwork required for the application and communicating with relevant departments multiple times. Just before his 17th birthday, South Africa's military service system required young men of eligible age to serve. Musk decided to leave before receiving the official notice. After successfully getting his Canadian passport, he bought a one-way ticket. His mother, May, gave him $2,000 as support. His brother, Kimball, said he'd join him after finishing high school. In 1989, 17-year-old Elon Musk arrived alone in Montreal, Canada. He carried simple luggage and ideas for planning his future. Upon arrival, he first planned to stay with distant relatives, but after a long journey, he found they had moved. To make ends meet, he started taking on different temporary jobs. This included helping with farm work on a relative's farm and cleaning the boiler room at a lumber mill. The job required wearing protective gear and cleaning the interior space in a specific environment. The pay for this position was quite attractive at the time. Musk completed the job. This experience made him understand the value of hard work more deeply and proved his ability to adapt to different environments. This hands-on experience also laid the foundation for his emphasis on focus and dedication in business management later on. After spending about a year in Canada, his brother, Kimball, arrived. The two brothers began to explore opportunities together. They actively searched for information and reached out to professionals in fields they were interested in for exchanges. This proactive attitude landed him an internship at a bank. Meanwhile, he also enrolled at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, to start his university studies. The study experience at Queen's University was a step in Musk's plan, and his long-term goal always pointed to the United States. After completing 2 years of studies at Queen's University, he successfully transferred to his target institution, the University of Pennsylvania in the US. This choice showed his strategic thinking. He got admitted to both the College of Arts and Sciences and the Wharton School at Penn, and decided to pursue a double major in physics and economics. This choice reflected his thinking framework. Physics provided him with a way to understand the fundamental laws of the world and satisfied his desire to explore essential questions. Economics, on the other hand, was a tool to turn knowledge into practical applications and achieve large-scale effects. He realized early on that innovative ideas needed effective operating models to have a wide-reaching impact. During his time at Penn, Musk showed his organizational skills. To cover tuition and living expenses, he and his roommate planned an event together. They rented a large space residence and used it to organize student communication activities on weekends. They did some simple decoration and provided drinks to attract students. On weekends, quite a few students would gather there. Musk himself didn't participate in drinking and wasn't interested in noisy environments. But he could effectively coordinate the on-site order and collect small fees to keep the event going. In this way, they could afford the rent of the residence. This experience was not just a campus memory. It demonstrated Musk's key abilities: identifying needs, integrating resources, and achieving goals in an efficient way. This ability was consistent with the core logic of his later startups like Zip2, Tesla, and SpaceX. In college, Musk began to think deeply about long-term issues. He wrote a paper on solar energy applications and foresaw its future development potential. He came up with a project plan called the Global Contact Information Database, which became the prototype of his first startup, Zip2. More importantly, he systematically thought about the future direction of human society. He believed that the internet, sustainable energy, and space exploration would be the key fields with far-reaching impacts. These three fields seemed not closely related at that time and were even considered too forward-looking. But in Musk's mind, they formed a clear picture of the future. His life goal shifted from personal success to making contributions in these fields. In 1995, Musk graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with excellent grades. He faced two options. With his background from the Wharton School, he could enter the financial field for a high-paying job, or he could continue academic research. He chose the latter and was successfully admitted to the doctoral program in applied physics at Stanford University, with a research focus on high-efficiency energy storage devices. He drove across the US and reached Palo Alto, California, the center of technological innovation and the heart of Silicon Valley. However, just 2 days after enrolling, he made a surprising decision. He decided to leave Stanford. Why did he give up the chance to further his studies at a top-tier university? Because Musk keenly sensed that a profound transformation was taking place. In Silicon Valley, in 1995, internet technology showed great development prospects. Related companies were emerging one after another, and the market was full of vitality. He felt that this was a rare opportunity to participate in shaping the future. Continuing to study theories in an academic environment might make him miss the chance to be part of this transformation. The drive inside him to pursue practice, creation, and breakthroughs pushed him to make this decision. He was determined to dive into the internet field. From South Africa to Canada, then to the campus practice at Penn, and finally to his short stay at Stanford, Elon Musk's journey of study and exploration came to an end here. He had completed the necessary preparations, changed his environment, accumulated knowledge, and stood at a place where opportunities converged. Next, he would join his brother Kimball and invest their savings to start a new exploration. This journey would make him one of the remarkable young successes in Silicon Valley and let him experience the complexity and challenges of the startup process for the first time. Elon Musk stood at a crucial crossroads in his life. On one side, there was a bright future as a physics PhD at Stanford University. On the other side, there was the booming internet wave, full of unknowns and opportunities. In just 2 days, he made his choice. He ditched academia and embraced the chaos. Because he firmly believed that the tides of history wait for no one. In the summer of 1995, 24-year-old Elon and his 22-year-old brother, Kimball, with $28,000 from their father in their pockets, stood on the streets of Palo Alto, California. They had nothing except a vague idea and a burning ambition. They were going to start an internet company. This decision seems like a no-brainer today. But back then, for two foreign brothers with no business experience and no connections, it was like a crazy, high-stakes gamble. They were betting everything they had. Today, we're going to tell the story of Musk's first startup, Zip2. It's a story of brotherly bond, extreme survival, and wild growth. In this story, you'll see how a 24-year-old guy slept on the office floor, took showers in a public bathroom, and with raw obsession and madness, dug out that all-important first pot of gold from the first internet bubble, which would change the world. So, what exactly was Zip2? In today's terms, it was a combination of an internet yellow pages and map navigation. In an era when Google Maps didn't even exist, it was a super forward-thinking idea. Musk's plan was to create an online city guide where users could search for business information, like nearby pizza places, and also see the route from point A to point B on an electronic map. The idea came from a simple insight. Musk noticed that almost all companies wanted a homepage on the internet, but they didn't know how to do it. And Zip2 was the all-in-one, foolproof solution for them. Once they had the idea, the brothers jumped into action. They rented the smallest, cheapest office in Palo Alto. How small was it? It was almost like a closet, just big enough for a computer, a small server, and 2 chairs. The first step in starting the business was writing code. This task naturally fell on Big Brother Elon. It was an unimaginable challenge. Almost single-handedly, Musk wrote the entire underlying code for the Zip2 platform from scratch in just a few months. He wrote code during the day, debugged at night. When he got tired, he'd take a nap on the office couch and then get back to work. He had no weekends, no holidays. His world was just code. He later said, "I basically lived in the office. It wasn't a figure of speech. It was the truth." To save on rent, he and Kimball really slept in the office. They had only one mattress. Whoever got tired first would go to sleep, and the other would keep working. What about showers? They got a membership at the nearby Windsor and went to the public bathrooms there every day to take care of personal hygiene. Their lives were squeezed into extreme hardship, but what kept them going was a fanatical belief in the future. Musk was convinced that what they were doing would change the world. Younger brother Kimball was in charge of the other half of the company, sales. He wore a borrowed suit, carried a briefcase full of CDs, and went door to small businesses, trying to sell this intangible online yellow pages. The process was incredibly tough in those days. Explaining what the internet and online directory were to a plumber or a restaurant owner was like selling magic. Most people would just kick him out, thinking he was a con man. But Kimball inherited the same tenacity as the Musk family. He got rejected time and time again, but he'd straighten his tie and head to the next place. Finally, they landed their first client, then the second, the third, and the company started to run in the most primitive, wild way. However, the enthusiasm of the two brothers alone was far from enough. Servers cost money, offices cost money, and they needed more funds to expand. Musk realized that they had to bring in venture capital. This was his first time stepping into the real core circle of Silicon Valley, and it was also his first taste of the coldness and power of capital. In 1996, the well-known venture capital firm Moore Davidoff Ventures decided to invest $3 million in Zip2 for the Musk brothers, who were running out of money at that time. This money was like a life-saving rain. But the entry of capital is never free. Along with the funds came the dilution of control and the loss of voice. The venture capital firm thought that although Musk was a technical genius, he was too young, too stubborn, and lacked management experience. So he was not suitable to be the CEO. They insisted on appointing a more mature and experienced professional manager to lead the company. This was an extremely painful decision. Zip2 was the child that Musk had created with his own hands, but now he had to watch others decide its fate. In the end, he compromised, because he knew that without this money, the company would die. Survival was the most important thing. A senior executive named Richard Sorkin became the new CEO of Zip2. Sorkin's arrival made the company more formal and organized, but it also made Musk feel what it was like to be sidelined for the first time. He was no longer the king who could do whatever he wanted. Instead, he became a chief technology officer. He still worked like crazy, optimizing the product day and night. But he found that the company's development direction was gradually drifting away from his original vision. He wanted to turn Zip2 into a platform directly for consumers, like today's Yelp or Dianping. But the board of directors and the CEO thought that packaging the software and selling it to media companies like newspapers was a safer and easier way to make money. This strategic difference made Musk extremely frustrated. He would have fierce arguments with the CEO in meetings and send long emails to board members to explain his views. But most of the time, his opinions were ignored. This was the first time in his life that he deeply realized how important control was in the business world. He would never forget this lesson. And it was this lesson that directly led to his almost paranoid pursuit of company control in his future entrepreneurial endeavors. He vowed that no one would ever take his company away from him again. Despite the internal contradictions and struggles, Zip2 caught the wave of the times. The internet bubble was expanding, and any company related to doublequotes.com became the target of capital pursuit. In 1999, an opportunity came. Compaq, a giant in the PC manufacturing industry at that time, decided to acquire Zip2 to expand its presence in the internet field. Compaq's initial offer was $200 million. But Musk showed his innate business sense and negotiation skills. He thought the price was too low. He cleverly used the market sentiment at that time and other potential competitors to keep raising the price. He even considered rejecting the acquisition at one point, instead merging Zip2 with another company and then going public independently. He was tired of being restricted and wanted to regain control. However, at this critical moment, his brother Kimball and other shareholders of the company chose the safer path, selling the company and cashing out. They were exhausted by the hardships of entrepreneurship and were afraid of missing this once in a lifetime chance to make money. Musk was isolated again. He could stick to his own ideas, but that would mean going against everyone. In the end, under great pressure, he compromised again. In February 1999, Compaq officially announced that it would acquire Zip2 for $307 million in cash, plus $34 million in stock options. At that time, this was one of the largest cash acquisition deals in internet history. On the day the deal was completed, 27-year-old Elon Musk received $22 million. In just 4 years, he went from a poor guy sleeping on the office floor to a new millionaire in Silicon Valley. He completed his first primitive accumulation in life with a thrilling gamble. When he got that huge sum of money, the first thing he did was buy a $1 million McLaren F1 sports car, which was the fastest and most expensive supercar in the world at that time. He also bought a luxury apartment and a small plane. It seemed that he was using this extreme consumption to make up for the tough years of taking showers in the YMCA bathroom and to announce his success to the world that once looked down on him. But the roar of the sports car couldn't fill the emptiness in his heart. He sold Zip2 and got a huge fortune, but he felt a deep sense of loss. Because he lost what he valued most, the joy of creation and the control of his destiny. He knew that this was not the end he wanted. For him, this money was not for enjoyment, but for starting the next, bigger, and crazier gamble. He had already proven that he could strike gold in the internet world. Now, he was going to use this money to challenge a more ancient, larger, and more stubborn industry, the banking industry. X represents the unknown and also his boundless ambition. And this time, he vowed to keep firm control in his own hands. But fate always seems to play jokes on him. He would face a more cruel betrayal and a coup, and this struggle would become one of the darkest moments in his entrepreneurial career. At 27, Elon Musk successfully sold his first company, Zip2, and made $22 million in profit. He bought a top-of-the-line sports car at that time and moved into a fancy residence. For most people, this was the peak of their dreams. But for Musk, it was just the starting point for a bigger venture. He didn't get lost in the pleasures that wealth could bring. To him, that expensive sports car was more like a precision engineering masterpiece. He kept thinking, looking for the next area worthy of transformation. Finally, his eyes landed on a fundamental and huge industry in life, the banking industry. In 1999, the banking industry was still dominated by the traditional model: physical branches, complex procedures, and a specific group of practitioners. It was inefficient and lacked innovation. Musk thought this was out of date. The internet had already changed the media, retail, and information sectors. Why couldn't it change finance? He came up with a forward-looking plan at that time: to establish an internet-based bank, get rid of physical branches and complex processes, and make financial services as easy as sending an email. He named the company X.com. This name showed his exploration of the unknown and his willingness to revolutionize the traditional model. The story of X.com involved a grand vision, resource investment, and a crucial management change. It was during this experience that Musk faced important challenges in his entrepreneurial journey and gained valuable experience. In March 1999, Musk invested $12 million of his personal funds. Learning from his experience at Zip2, he made sure he had important decision-making power. His vision was grand. X.com was not just a payment tool, but a comprehensive online financial platform: savings, investment, loans, insurance. It aimed to integrate various financial needs. To achieve his goal, he showed high-efficiency execution. He assembled an excellent team and got involved in the details of the product himself. However, in the neighboring area, another company called Confinity was also growing rapidly. Its founders were Peter Thiel and Max Levchin. Confinity's initial product allowed users to transfer money to each other conveniently through the popular Palm Pilot device at that time. They gave this function a simple and memorable name, PayPal. Then, a fierce market competition broke out in Silicon Valley. To attract users, both X.com and PayPal adopted similar promotion strategies, offering cash incentives to newly registered users and those who successfully referred new users. This move caught people's attention in Silicon Valley. The number of users grew rapidly, but it also meant that both companies had to invest a large amount of money in market expansion, and the operating costs increased significantly. Both Musk and Peter Thiel realized that continuous, fierce competition was not good for the development of both sides. Seeking cooperation became a viable option. In March 2000, after negotiation, X.com and Confinity officially merged. As the largest shareholder, Musk became the CEO of the new company. Peter Thiel became a strategic advisor instead. The external competition came to an end, but discussions within the company about the development direction and philosophy began to surface. The choice of the new company's name became one of the focuses of the internal disagreements. To Musk, X.com carried the vision of building a comprehensive financial platform. However, the original Confinity team, especially the founder Levchin and others, preferred the PayPal brand and the convenient payment function it represented. In September 2000, Elon Musk took a transnational flight. During this time, the operational management responsibilities of X.com were adjusted. The company's board of directors, based on an assessment of development needs, decided to have Peter Thiel serve as the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, leading the company's next stage operations. When Musk ended his flight and turned on his communication device, he learned about the adjustment of the company's management responsibilities. As an important founder and the largest shareholder of the company, Musk showed his support for the company's future development after understanding the situation. He actively communicated with the new CEO, Peter Thiel, and expressed his willingness to continue supporting the company as a shareholder and director, and to jointly drive the business forward. Musk always prioritizes the overall success of the company. He takes a long-term view and recognizes the importance of stable and sustainable development. This attitude of maintaining constructive cooperation in the face of change reflects his key ability to handle complex business environments. This experience also deepened his understanding of corporate governance and decision-making mechanisms. After that, the company officially adopted the brand name PayPal and made significant progress under Peter Thiel's leadership, successfully going public. In 2002, eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion. As the largest individual shareholder, Elon Musk received a post-tax profit of over $180 million from this successful acquisition. The acquisition of this capital provided important support for him to realize his grander vision. The PayPal he helped found eventually became a highly influential and successful enterprise. Now, armed with new resources and rich experience, Musk began to think about his next move. His eyes were firmly fixed on the field that had fascinated him since childhood, exploring the vast expanse of space. Did he lose? From the perspective of the power struggle, he lost big time. He was ousted by his most trusted partners and watched as the company was renamed PayPal, a name he once scorned. However, fate, the greatest playwright of all, seems to love writing epic twists in Elon Musk's life story. He lost a battle, but was about to win the whole war on another front. Today, we're going to tell the grand finale of the first chapter. It's a story about a fortune falling from the sky, about dreams, sports cars, and a famous car crash. At the end of this story, Musk finally gathered enough capital to start that truly crazy gamble he'd dreamed of since childhood. And that gamble is called the stars and the sea. After Musk was removed, Peter Thiel took over as CEO. The company officially changed its name to PayPal and started gearing up for an IPO. But they picked the worst possible time. In 2001, the dot-com bubble burst completely. The Nasdaq index plummeted, and countless, once mighty single-quotes.com companies vanished overnight. Wall Street was running away from tech stocks. Against this backdrop, it was like a pipe dream for a still loss-making internet finance company to go public. But PayPal had no choice. They were burning through cash so fast that without public market financing, the company would soon be in dire straits again. Just when everyone thought PayPal would be another victim of the bubble burst, a miracle happened. In February 2002, against all odds and under huge pressure, PayPal went public on the Nasdaq. Its stock price soared by over 50% on the first day. Why? Because PayPal had something that all internet companies at the time were dying for: a real, clear, and highly promising business model. The core of this business model came from a huge business empire. Back then, eBay was the world's largest online auction platform. Tons of buyers and sellers were doing business there, and they all needed a safe and convenient payment tool. PayPal fit the bill perfectly. It was like a smart pilot fish hitching a ride on the giant whale that was eBay, growing as the whale swam. eBay's executives soon realized they were becoming more and more reliant on PayPal. Over half of the transactions were done through PayPal. They'd tried to develop their own payment system, but it was no match for PayPal. For eBay, this was a major strategic risk. They couldn't let the lifeblood of their business empire be in the hands of another independent company. The only solution was to buy it. Going public just made PayPal's value known to the world. The real wealth party was just getting started. The negotiation for the acquisition kicked off in a flash. For the shareholders and management of PayPal, this was a dream ending. They'd been through the brutal money, burning war, and the heart-stopping process of going public. Now, at last, a tech giant was willing to end it all with an offer they couldn't refuse. In July 2002, the deal was sealed. eBay announced it would acquire PayPal in full, with a sky-high $1.5 billion in stock. When the news spread, the whole of Silicon Valley was shaken. Amid the ruins of the internet, PayPal emerged as the last survivor and one of the biggest winners. In this capital frenzy, the biggest individual winner was none other than the former king who'd long been ousted from the power center, Elon Musk. As PayPal's largest individual shareholder, he held over 11% of the company's shares. When the deal was done, those shares fetched him over $250 million worth of eBay stock. After taxes, a 31-year-old young man had over $180 million in cash in his bank account. What does that mean? It means he could live the most luxurious life he could imagine anywhere on Earth for the rest of his life. He'd finally achieved the ultimate goal all entrepreneurs dream of: financial freedom. Now, an ultimate question loomed before him. What would a young man full of ambition, energy, and crazy ideas do when he suddenly had almost limitless resources? Musk's first reaction was much like that of any ordinary person who'd won the lottery jackpot. He went on a spending spree. He bought a private jet. He purchased a mansion in the posh Bel Air neighborhood of Los Angeles, with a view overlooking the whole city. But the most eye-catching was his long-desired ultimate ride, the silver McLaren F1 supercar. He'd been yearning for it since the acquisition of Zip2, and now he finally had the means to own it. Back then, this car was the pinnacle of speed and engineering, the Concorde of the automotive world. Owning it was a symbol of status and taste. There's a well-known story about this car, one that's worthy of being written into Silicon Valley's history. One day, Musk was driving this brand new, uninsured McLaren on the famous Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley, with his business partner and former Q rival, Peter Thiel, in the passenger seat. Thiel asked him, "What can this car do?" Musk replied, "Watch this." Then he floored the accelerator, and the car shot off like an arrow from a bow. He swerved wildly, and the car screeched at its limit. Then, on a curve, the car lost control, flew into the air, spun a few times, and crashed hard into the embankment by the road. The car was almost totaled. Glass was shattered everywhere, and the carbon fiber shell had a huge crack. Fortunately, both of them were unharmed. They climbed out of the wrecked car and stood by the road, looking at this million-dollar heap of scrap. Instead of panicking or being heartbroken, Musk turned to Thiel, who was still in shock, and burst out laughing. Then he said, "Funny thing is, this car isn't insured." After that, he called a tow truck, and he and Thiel caught a ride to continue with their scheduled meeting. This story perfectly captures Musk's mindset and character at that moment. First, he was still that adventurous, limit-challenging kid. Second, and more importantly, money and material things just didn't matter much to him. $1 million car was gone, but it was just a toy, an engineering marvel, not the ultimate pursuit of his life. While everyone thought he'd be lost in fancy cars, mansions, and parties, his mind had already wandered far beyond Sand Hill Road. During the months waiting for the acquisition to finalize, he didn't idle. He moved to Los Angeles, not for Hollywood or Beverly Hills, but because it was home to America's top aerospace talent and companies. He started reading like crazy, devouring one professional book after another on rocket propulsion technology, astrophysics, and orbital mechanics. He joined the Mars Society, a non-profit organization made up of scientists and enthusiasts obsessed with Mars exploration. He was like a sponge, soaking up all the knowledge about space exploration. Everyone around him thought he was crazy. His friends advised him to buy an island and enjoy the sun and sand. His wife, Justine, was also confused. Why couldn't he just take a proper rest like a normal billionaire? But Musk knew he didn't have time to rest. The dreams of interstellar travel he'd read about in books as a child, the promises he'd made under the South African stars, now, for the first time, had a chance of coming true. To him, that $180 million in cash wasn't wealth. It was a ticket to the universe. It wasn't for enjoying life. It was for burning, for turning the scenes in science fiction novels into reality. His life was about to upgrade from two-dimensional business competition to a three-dimensional grand narrative about human destiny. He stood on top of the mountain, overlooking the wealth empire he'd built. But what he saw wasn't the scenery in front of him. It was the vast, dark, and fascinating unknown universe beyond the horizon. He was about to embark on the craziest and most expensive startup in human history. He'd take on military industrial giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. He'd challenge the limits of physics. He'd face everyone's doubts and ridicule. He'd spend all his wealth to answer that ultimate question: can humanity become a multi-planetary species? And this is where our story's next act begins.